Start us off, Johnny Bananas.
Hey, it's Johnny Bananas here. See, I don't know if I can do this bit on an actual thing because he's a real person. I just think it's funny that he introduces himself as Johnny Banana. You know what? No,
Yeah.
I'm gonna commit. Hey, it's Johnny fucking Bananas here. I got all your favorite fruits. I got bananas. I got green bananas. I got red bananas. I got purplish pink bananas. I got blue bananas. And the fun thing about them is everyone gets a corresponding banana color, and those are the only bananas you can pick up. I don't know why I decided to make this bit a Donkey Kong 64 joke, but that is what we are going with. Hey, it's Johnny fucking Bananas.
Great start.
Oh, I can't bit with the best of them anymore. I am very old. Jesus,
Yeah.
I need a water break.
Yeah. So, welcome to week one of Carter and Kevin, or Kevin and Carter, want to order the combination. Talk football. Week one for the
Woo!
2023 season. This is,
Yeah, welcome.
this is where applause would go if I had like a soundboard ready and stuff. I don't. And we're not going to do post
Oh,
production.
oh
Unless if
yeah.
you
I
want to
actually
do it, because I don't have time.
I don't know if I have any more room in my brain for post production. I do
That
have some ideas for a Disney desk idea that you're going to be involved with that I might do, but
I'm ready.
that might
But that's a off
that's a different story.
that's on an off camera conversation for now.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but we decided because now we have two NFL shows, one with the whole squad and one with just us. We figured we would do sort of weekly, sort of more quote unquote serious ones where we just talk about what happened. We talk about, take 30 to 45 minutes just to
yeah.
recap the week and save the goofier, more meme stuff for
When we have the
our
whole
two
gang.
unknowledgeable folk.
Yeah, and this is kind of the good part about us growing Castpod to a four-person squad as opposed to just two is I'm not having to bully Callum, who's out chasing rattlesnakes or whatever he does.
I know
Um,
winter is on its way, but you don't need
yeah,
that much rattlesnake meat.
I don't know, get it, man. But I don't have to bully him into be like, we gotta record now. It's like Carter and I can just do our own segment and
Oh, yeah.
take it away. Um, so yeah, I guess we'll start with a little bit of a basic format of how the show's going to be run because it's kind of how things are going to go. So we're going to talk about this previous week. We're going to talk about what we thought was cool, what we
Oh,
didn't like, slash what were the lows of the week. Um, we're also going to talk about what is the don't sleep on game. So that's going to be a cast pod thing where it's the don't sleep on game. So outside of original like favorite teams, what do we think is the game that we definitely have to go out of our way to watch? Like it could be a surprising game. It could be like a juggernaut match. It's like what is going to be that game? And after we're talking about done talking about highlights and lowlights, we're gonna just talk about what happened. Like what are some like big things that we've noticed? Whether
yes.
it
What
be
are trends that are coming up
yeah,
as we start this next 104th, I believe it is, NFL season?
yep. And then after we're talking about all the notable things, we will go into what's up next week. What
Hell yeah.
what are we thinking for this upcoming week? And then we'll end it with the Caspod Fantasy Football Comedy League concession speech of the week.
Oh, yes.
If you get the lowest points in the league for the week, you have to write a concession speech on why, how your team can do better, what's going on, all that jazz.
Correct. So, shall we kick it off?
Alrighty, just like 8:20 on Thursday, let's kick off the season. Eh? Eh?
Woo! Yes. Um, yeah, so starting off with some of the highlights. Um, it was a very pleasant turnout for the rookies.
Mm-hmm.
As we've talked about on opening night, Jameer Gibbs
Yeah.
was a very impressive proof of concept. The Lions have very much been talking about, like, oh, we're going to use him in so many different ways, shapes, or forms. And I didn't know much about him. I'm kind of been out on Alabama running backs, but man, that guy really does just seem to be moving at a faster pace than everyone on the field. And they were having him out wide, they were moving him around. I was very, very impressed with what they were doing with him.
Yeah, he was. I liked. He might have not been the biggest fantasy point getter, depending on like how your league settings are put out. However, watching him in that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Sorry, excuse me for a second. Let me rephrase that. The Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs,
Mm-hmm.
and you saw him kind of break through a lot of tackles, pull some like quick moves. It was very interesting to watch. This kid's got, as of right now, a lot of potential.
Oh,
Football.
yes.
Let's talk about football.
Oh, my God. No, no, no.
Football.
There's no snake football teams. Get out of here. That's a metaphor for your betrayal and a metaphor for the snakes.
You're right. I'm not in this episode.
I mean, fourth wall breaking son of a bitch.
Hold on, I'm gonna award him some comedy points real quick if you want to continue.
You know what? I'll back that up. Yeah, probably it's always tough to pick a rookie of the week, but it would probably be Bijan Robinson. He didn't get the most carries, he didn't get the most touches or anything, but he put on a clinic. He basically showed like, hey, sometimes it really is worth picking a running back that early because when they are a rare combination of speed, athleticism, and just versatility. His first touchdown of the season was he was out wide, caught a pass,
Yep.
blew two men out of his shoes, and ricocheted off another. He had a couple angry runs. Again, it's just, you're like, oh, yes, this is why sometimes you can justify picking a running back with a top 10 pick. Because if they're a game breaker, it just completely changes the geometry of your offense.
Yeah, he definitely is like. I think he might be the one to like. Obviously, being one, I think the first running back drafted this last draft class. Correct?
Oh, yes. Yes. Gibbs was like 10 picks after,
yeah,
I believe.
but I think Bijan is like he's going to be setting a bar at the rate he's going, and it's just kind of here's the thing: he's on the Falcons. Are they gonna how much are they gonna rework their offense, like specifically with the line and tight ends and stuff, to set him up for things, or once again it's the Falcons?
Yes, well, that is the interesting because he did not get the most. I don't think he got the most carries on his team. Tyler Algier got just as many carries and got a lot more goal line touches. Pointedly, Kyle Pitts got like 4 catches, and Drake London had 0.
Yeah.
And Arthur Smith, annoying man, went on his whole like, well, I don't care about fantasy. Drake London likes winning it. And here's the thing. Yeah, Drake London is not going to like winning if he's not winning a Super Bowl. He will leave. And I swear to God, when Kyle Pitts inevitably goes to the Kansas City Chiefs and they get another decade of tight end dominance, I'm going to scream. But Bijan is the one guy I'm actually glad they're not giving too many touches.
Yeah, he had 10 carries for 56 yards this game.
Yeah, like a premium, like so much of our discourse about like top tier running backs and like, oh, well, they break down easy. It's like, well, just don't give them that many carries, stupid. Like, you should be treating them like a Ferrari, not a pickup truck.
No.
So, yeah, I'm all for, like, picking and choosing when he just gets to stunt on people.
Yeah, these like, I think week 1 is definitely not the week to show off. Week 1 is the get the rust off week, like especially if you don't play the preseason.
Oh, yeah.
I think closer to the middle to later part of the season, games start mattering a little bit more, and then there's injuries happening, so people are changing their schemes a lot more. I think that he was like, I think that's when you gotta save to show off.
Oh, yeah. A couple other rookies we have, of course, Anthony Richardson.
What a showing.
Oh, yes. I was I feel like I was very high on this show, being like, Anthony Richardson is the guy. Like, invest in top tier physical traits and hope it works out. And not only did he just look physically impressive, not only did he look fast, not only did he look strong, not only did he do like all of the sexy, cool stuff you wanted, he also just looked like a competent NFL quarterback. There was
Yes.
obviously like some like kinks in the armor. There's definitely like moments where you're like, this man needs to throw more footballs before he reaches his full potential.
Yeah.
But I was surprised how many plays he just sat in the pocket, just waited, and made the right decision. Like, if I was poor Kenny Mack, or if I was anyone who had any affiliation with the Panthers, and I picked
Bryce
Young, who
over
looked
him.
fine, who looked fine,
Oh man.
but is like 5'9" compared to Anthony Richardson's like 6'5", 4.440, I would be despondent. Because I'm like, the whole pitch for picking Bryce Young is he's ready to go. And I'm like, evidently Anthony Richardson's also ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. Anthony Richardson, 24 for 37, which isn't the world's best stats, but first real game as a rookie. And he's playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's not like... They're no longer the bottom of the barrel team. That's a couple years ago.
Yeah. Like, you're running with them, too. Like, they're the best team in your division, and you're running with them. Like, the Jaguars had to sweat that game out.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a battle of, like, the Jaguars won in the fourth. That's pretty much it. So it's like, that's not a blowout. That's where they lasted a little bit longer. Could have a little bit improvement on Indianapolis side, but what a showing from Anthony Richardson for his first like real game.
Yes. Jalen Carter is someone you listed if you want to take the floor on this one.
Jalen Carter, defensive line for the Eagles. That kid has been the talk of the town for like multiple reasons all year. Some reasons better than others. Won't deny that. But he had a great showing against Mac Jones. And it was a combination of just he was getting through a lot more than the Patriots O-line would have liked, and you can kind of see that. The only reason he didn't do more damage is because Mac Jones threw the ball very quickly almost every single play.
Right. He already has his first career sack, which oftentimes interior linemen can take a little while to develop or, develop as pass rushers.
Got it first game.
Yep. Like, look, there is a very good reason why he wasn't drafted first overall, or the Bears didn't take him, or, he fell as far as he is to the Eagles. But, that is kind of just the space the Eagles have been over the last few years of just, Providence seems to favor them in terms of, picks falling the right way or being able to trade up at the right time. And much like the offensive line, they now have a generation of linemen ready to swap in on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
The lines are mint.
Yeah, with specifically defense, because that's what Jalen Carter's on. You got Jalen Carter, rookie, Noah Smith, rookie, and Jordan Davis, second year. You got these old guys ready to make their way out in the near future. Won't deny that. You got, as of right now, they're pretty set up for the next generation. It's just a matter of keeping it.
Right. And my final rookie for this week is, two real quick. One, Zay Flowers ended up getting the most touches from Lamar Jackson for the Baltimore Ravens. He's a guy I really wanted for the Bills. He had an incredible, he's one of those guys who, seems to phase shift. He just moves differently. And it kind of proved out. The Ravens' offense looked very clunky, and, they need some time to, really develop the system. But at least for the first time in Lamar's career, he really does have a go-to, really top-flight wide receiver. And also, I'd like to point out from that same game, C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud, is kind of the weirdly quiet one of the rookie class. He was kind of outside of, I would have had them ranked Richardson, Stroud, Young, Levis. And
I would have had the same four, different order. I think I would.
Really?
Yeah. I think I would have had Stroud first, actually. Then Richardson.
Right.
And then Will
If the
Levis
Panthers
and-
picked Stroud,
yeah.
I wouldn't have been shocked.
No,
Like, I would have been like, that's a good pick.
those four, in my opinion, were guaranteed first four QBs. If you needed a QB, you're taking one of those four guaranteed right off the bat. That would have been my pick. Like, and that was my take before the draft is. All right,
Oh, yeah.
if you're in need of QB,
And-
you're picking A, B, C, or D. You're not. That's how it's going to happen.
Yeah, and he just, like, again, it was like proof, like, all of the selling points for him proved out. He was calm. He looked like the game was going at the
Yes.
right pace for him. He was making the right decisions. And again, a game that the Texans had no business being in because they just lacked the sheer talent. He was
Yeah.
keeping it close for most of the game. And hope that the Texans continue to actually get, talent so he's not throwing to Robert Woods anymore.
Yeah, and we can talk a little bit more about the Texans in a later segment, but C.J. Stroud, not bad. Pretty
Right.
great. Like, for kind of like Richardson for a first game, pretty solid showing.
hmm A highlight that I think, as a big hype man for this guy, you're going to be very excited to talk about. Jordan Love showing
Yes.
up.
Yes, he came to play this week, and I'm not a super huge Packers fan. I don't really have much invested into them. They're not even my favorite team of that division. My favorite team of that division has always been the Lions, purely because of Barry Sanders being in backyard football like one. So that goes way back. But when they played the Eagles last year and Aaron Rodgers got taken out relatively in, like, I don't remember when in the game, and they put in Jordan Love, that is when I was actually scared in the game for their quarterback situation of, oh shit, we might be in more trouble now. I never thought that once with Rodgers, and that's a later topic. But
Christ, crackers.
Jordan Love didn't have
yeah.
an amazing like stat-wise, not an amazing game outside of 3 touchdown passes. But what a quality, like,
Oh, yes. For me,
I'm the
this is
guy
just-
game.
Yeah. For me, this is just for me, this was a highlight of the entire Packers team, honestly. Like, I would argue that, like, the concept of, like, getting this, like, dark cloud over your franchise pushed away to the east is paying off in dividends. Matt LaFleur, I think, assuming they can keep this up, is going to be a big Coach of the Year candidate, because you see, like, oh, yes, this is why they brought him in. He's a really smart offensive coach who's helping set up Jordan Love to execute the offense. One, they all seem to just rally around Jordan Love. They seem like genuinely excited he's succeeding.
Lot of like for him, yeah.
Yes. And after years of investing on defense, years of investing, like, first-round picks on defense as opposed to, like, wide receivers and offensive weapons,
Yeah.
like, their defense actually looked competent for the first time in a while.
They
Like,
held their own, I would say.
yes. And more importantly, like, this was just important for Jordan Love as a statement game. After Aaron Rodgers does the "I own you" thing last year, you have to show up. You can't afford to blow it against the Bears. And despite all the pressure on his shoulders, he took a deep breath, showed up, and produced.
And I think that would have been, like, I think this, outside of being, like, his first main season, like, regular season starting job, like, not for injury, he's QB1. I think this was the biggest game of his career for the sole purpose of, like, with Rodgers leaving, and it's like, if you have a bust on this first game, everyone is going to be against you.
You're just not going to recover. The whole season's going to spiral almost immediately.
Yeah, your team, like, your team quality ranking would have, like, at least all of week 1 up until you play week 2, everyone would be just ragging on you. Hey, remember when the Lions were, like, pretty much winless? That's going to be the Packers.
Yeah. People would have turned very fast.
That would have been such a quick turnaround against him. But him and the rest of the Packers can't deny that they all helped. Like, a lot of good stats across the board for the offense. A lot of good stats for the defense.
Right. I feel like my version of Jordan Love, and I hate to say it because they're my rival team, is the Dolphins. Like, we've talked about it, and it's like, it's not just our usual argument of like, well, as long as Tua Tagovailoa doesn't have a severe concussion, like, they'll be fine. I argue their offense looked even better than last year in terms of like, it seems like they fully like developed around the weaknesses of Tua in terms of like, what is he good at, what is he not, and they've kind of fine-tuned it where even his deep throws are just within reach of his arm. Like, they've perfectly choreographed the exact timing on every single route. And again, you're like, yeah, this is why this guy was considered the obvious, unabashed #1 overall pick before Joe Burrow showed up. It's like, he's methodical, he's accurate to a T, and he like can get the ball exactly where it needs to be in about a second and a half. And this game just was a clinic, and it was like, a tight game too.
Yeah,
like it was an actual, like, it wasn't like they just crushed them. They had to keep scoring. It was a
real football game.
Yeah, honestly, like, this first week, and we'll talk about it when we're talking about like notable notes. This was like the one good offensive game of the day.
Yeah, there was a couple other games that were like pretty good, but that, like, honestly, that was probably the best showing of an offense.
Indeed. Oh yeah.
I will say though, in my opinion, Tua does have access to the two best, like the best wide receiver duo in the league. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I think they're easily like the best pair.
Yeah, again, they've just like it's probably one of the finest, and I hate it because again, the Dolphins like literally got caught tanking basically.
Yeah.
But like, it is a masterclass in roster building around like 3 or 4 very specific concepts, and now it's paying out like a slot machine.
Yeah, Tua can throw, Tyreek Hill fast and catch, Jalen Waddle fast and catch. We've got this.
Exactly. In terms of your don't sleep game from week 1, what are you going with?
Ooh, my don't sleep on it game, and you might be a little bit mad about this, is the Bills-Jets. I can't pick the Eagles game.
I'll speak my piece later.
Yeah, I just can't pick the Eagles. You just can't pick possibly the Bills. It got pretty slow in the middle of it, and the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter and overtime, that in my opinion was just pure football. Like, you're in the trenches, you're throwing, you're playing for your lives. And I'd like to put on the record in the group chat, about, I don't know, an hour before the overtime and fourth quarter, I said, always trust your kicker, never trust a punter. And how that bit the Bills in the butt is...
All I will say is, I will defend the kicker of like, it kind of looked like he was trying to swipe at the ball. And I'm like, yeah, because they're just going to kick the field goal and win. You might as well just kind of like flail at him aimlessly. Yeah. Like, the game's already over. Let's not make a spectacle of ourselves over a bed.
Yeah, no.
If anyone gets that reference, I will Venmo them $7.
That's enough for a Disney-esque Patreon subscription. What? But, yeah, no, I think that was probably my most enjoyed game that I was able to dedicate a lot of attention to. But yeah, that would be my pick. Who's yours?
This is a weird one. Rams Seahawks. So I'm gonna do this here instead of doing lowlights. Like, look, the Rams, they're all rookies. Like, 70% of their roster is rookies.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Stafford had to be like, guys, I'm not retiring. Cooper Kupp is out indefinitely, ? Mm-hmm. And you watch that game, and I would argue Matthew Stafford kind of quietly had just the best quarterback performance. Like, he was 24 of 38 for 334 yards. And you're just like, oh, right. Even when this guy was on jack crap, like, duty diarrhea Lions teams, put that on a shirt. he was still slinging it and still getting them wins based on sheer stubbornness of losing. Like he can spin yarn into gold, and this was a reminder of that even in his old age, even with. And I'm like, I can see a scenario where this is like a scrappy team that at least like gets to a respectable amount of wins. Like they're not going to the playoffs. Let's not even when Cup comes back, I'm not going to go that far, but they will at least put up a fight. Meanwhile, the Seahawks, good lord, like what happened? Like they just didn't show up. I don't even really know how to describe like what happened. They also lost both of their tackles. There are a lot of Seahawks fans in like big sports media. Mina Kimes seems despondent already, and I'm just like, yeah, I would be too, because after all the good vibes coming into the season, they just looked listless. They just didn't really look like they had a plan to play that day. And they're already very injured.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they were the biggest bust of the week, but
not even close. We'll get there.
Yeah, but they're like, I think they had like the second most harshest fall from grace. They made the playoffs last year, didn't go far in them at all, but
right,
made it on technicality, so they're good enough to do that. And
whereas if you have to bring in a 41-year-old Jason Peters,
yeah,
like
what do you
do? The boat's going in, isn't in the eye of the storm. It's in the storm.
Yeah, the ship is sinking. But we shall see. Seahawks, they could turn it around. They're facing the Lions next week, so we could talk possibly more about that later. Anyway,
yes,
we talked about the highs. Let's get to the lows.
Yes. You listed Houston, and
yes.
Honestly, I'll hear your pick first.
Let me explain why. Because I was typing this at work, and I didn't have time to type out the full thought. I just wanted to get the spark note in so I didn't forget it. It wasn't a matter of Houston as a whole. It was specifically the Houston offensive line. That is a low. That's the low I was going to talk about. Because every time I saw them on Red Zone, when I was watching their games, I saw nothing but them folding in. Like, that offensive line is weaker than something that's weak. I don't have a good analogy at me at the moment.
Check cardboard.
Sure. But it was that, like, every time I saw them, they were just kind of folding in on C.J. Stroud, and he wasn't getting... Like, he should definitely have taken the Mac Jones approach and gotten it out of his hands as fast as possible. And they were facing a solid team in the Ravens. But you got to give your quarterback a little bit more time than they were giving him. And when I say a little bit, I mean a significant amount.
Again, for me, it is more of an investment in you have a bunch of adults in the room now between DeMeco Ryan as your coach, Will Anderson as, like, your defensive lead, and CJ Stroud as your offensive lead. And it's more just like, well, now you have to build talent around. Like, you actually have to get talent. You know how it is.
Yeah, they got to build it up, and they don't quite have the talent yet.
Hello? But yeah, we're getting there for a change. Another L, Pittsburgh. Good lord, guys. They were really never in this game. To say they would be grossly disingenuous about what happened.
Yeah.
They basically came out and got rocked from the word go. I really don't like Brock Purdy. But again, his whole thing is being able to run this offense without any problems. And the sheer amount of skill position players that they have is just overwhelming at some point. And their defense looks just as good as it ever has been. And Pittsburgh, their offensive line looks anemic still, which is alarming. Yeah, they can't run ball.
The one person I saw on the offensive line that actually was able to hold their player for a decent bit was Isaac Seumalo.
Right. And I'd hope so. Kenny Pickett just looked Someone described it well as he thinks he's Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, but he lacks all of their physical skills. Like he wants to do all of these, like run around, sling the ball. Like my feet aren't set, but I'm still going to throw it 80 yards. And it's like, no, you can't do that. Your arm is adequate. Your hands are small. You're not very fast.
Yeah.
And like the entire pitch for the season was Kenny Pickett would get better and get more competent and just be a solid Kirk Cousins level leader to push all of the talent along. Instead, George Pickens is already pissed off. Like he got Deontay Johnson hurt because he was throwing the ball so behind him he like twisted his knee.
Yeah.
Like Pratt Fryermuth got a damn concussion, or no, not a concussion, a chest injury. So like already the like wheels are off the cart, and it doesn't even feel like you could just chalk it up as like, okay, well maybe San Francisco is just one of the 3 best teams in the league, and I'm like, but if you can't even run with them, then what are we doing here?
Yeah. No, that was like, and I said it last time. I said that Steelers might be my sleeper like playoff team, and boy was I wrong as of right now.
Yeah, that a lot of people are rushing to Wall Street to get their money out of that stock.
Yeah, they are. Whew, that was a game that happened.
Yeah. It's just a bummer.
Yeah. And it's not even the matter of like oh, you didn't do good. It was you got laughed at game. Like if you told me that they put I know they didn't, but if the 49ers just subbed in all their backups or rearranged for the fourth quarter, I'd believe you.
Right. And there was like, I love they were coming out of half and it's like, oh, Pittsburgh might have figured some stuff out. They have momentum, and reruns for a 70-yard touchdown. And you're like, it is just an overwhelming amount of talent on the offensive side of the ball.
Yes. Yeah, no, I was going to say this was the most laughable game. This would have been the most laughable game of the season or the week. However, we had Sunday Night Football.
Yes. Do you want to jump to the New York Giants now? Because
we'll
good
skip.
Lord. Imagine getting the Sunday night slot, a home game, all your fans in the rain, and you are down 17-0 going into the second quarter. Like, between the two teams, I want to give the Giants the benefit of the doubt because I want to say, like, sometimes you just get completely, like, blitzed. Sometimes you just have cartoonish calamities happen to you, and you get sucker punched, and you just never recover, and you have to throw out your whole game script. But even then, to get that ground into paste, to see Daniel Jones do nothing after you give him all of that money and alienate your best player in Saquon Barkley, that's the part, because that's the thing. Because now Saquon Barkley is going to sit there the whole season and be like, you gave this guy the money over me. This guy.
Oh, man.
And maybe that's the plan. Because, again, Carson Wentz got traded despite his terrible contract. Maybe that's the plan with Daniel Jones.
That was...
But,
still... What?
Yeah.
Like... I want to do nothing less than compliment the Cowboys. So I'm going to insult the Giants, but their offense was even softer than Houston's offensive line. It was like we said, it was the Sunday night game. And Sunday night same division, 2 playoff caliber teams from the previous season. And you get the stupidest blowout possible.
Yeah, at least the Steelers had the pleasantry of just getting to
scoring
high at one, and scoring. Because I was like, why did I lose so bad in the Comedy Points League? And it's like, oh, I didn't get a single fucking point from my kicker.
Yeah,
0. You couldn't even get a pity field goal in the fourth quarter.
Hey, field goals win games.
You couldn't even get that. It's almost incomprehensible. It's kind of wild that is one of the worst losses in Giants history after all this excitement and all this hype, and you actually look kind of good in the preseason.
Yeah. You looked good. You were feeling good. Daniel Jones is making a pretty solid deal, and you do this. Also, I heard this. I forget on which podcast, and it's Tyrod Taylor was also in for 2 attempts, so they kept Daniel Jones in 90% of that game. Which think about that. It's your starting quarterback you spent a lot of money on. You are being blown out of the water. You're even substituting backup receivers and running backs. And your quarterback, you're just like, you know what? Nah.
You stay in there. Maybe
Stay
we'll
in
get
there,
lucky
Danny.
and you'll sprain your knee and we'll just be able to punt all of this to a later date.
Get sacked 7 times. Why not? And the Giants had more time of possession of the ball too. So like theoretically, that is, you can technically have more opportunities to score if you have the ball longer. But,
Right. Even just like you get a lame defensive pass interference call and get a field goal. Anything. Again, playing football is hard, but it shouldn't be that hard to score a point.
Yeah, you bait them in with get them with a real quick, sneaky false start, something small, just to get a couple extra yards. You get in field goal range. You end up more like the Bengals.
I just want to. Literally, no other team got shut out this week. It wasn't a great week for offense.
No.
But even the Bengals got a field goal.
Oh man.
Even the Steelers got 1 touchdown. Even the Seahawks got 13 points.
Yeah.
Even the Titans got 15
Solid,
points.
Yeah, 15. All right.
The Texans got 3 field goals.
Yeah, no, it's so sad. You got all the Giants fans talking about this is gonna be our year. Daniel Jones is worth it, and you pull out the biggest doo-doo on the planet. So as of right now, Giants still the only scoreless team in the NFL.
Another low. Kansas City. I'm not as mad at them as I thought I would be. But it's not fun to start the season with the Super Bowl champion losing.
Yeah, them losing by 1 point that was made in the 4th quarter. Not really the situation. It's more on the lines of you're the Super Bowl champs. You got the home field advantage opening game. You got a star, sure, you have a star tight end that is way better than 90% of the players on the field. And
that's the thing. Travis Kelce gets hurt, and you're like,
you're falling apart at the seams.
Right. Well, it's like a proof of concept that Travis Kelce really is that good, and he's very much that much bearing piece for this entire offense. Where it's like, oh, they have nothing. Yeah. Kadarius Toney. This is more a low for Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
4 drops, a single receiving yard, and one of those drops led to a game, a back-breaking one on 3rd down that kind of cost you the game. And in a game you lost by 1 point, you deflected a ball up into the air, which got intercepted and returned for a touchdown. Truly, it's hard to imagine an individual the Giants receivers were terrible, but there might not be an individual worst performance from a wide receiver this season.
Yeah, and it's one of those things with also the fact of you've got Patrick Mahomes. That guy throws actual dimes every single time. It's one of those things where the interception counted against him because he's the one that threw it. But if you look at it, that's clearly Kadarius Toney's fault.
Right. Of all the star quarterbacks who kind of underperformed today, he was at least the one who looked the best while dealing with the worst. He was still making cool plays. It's just no one was catching them.
Patrick Mahomes showed up to play. His receivers his receivers and running backs not so much. He got
Exactly.
he has the most yards, the most rushing yards for the team for that game, which says kind of something in my opinion. Like,
Yeah, like for all the hype about like the Josh Allens of the world and stuff, you really shouldn't. If your quarterback has more rushing yards, your offense is flawed in some major way.
yeah, no, you gotta have somebody. And once again, still coming from the Super Bowl champs, like that's the biggest piss poor part about it is
Mm.
it's not the it's not like the Jaguars Colts game where it's like two guys that they showed up like they played last season and one did bad, one did pretty good, but what were we expecting? They kind of got the luck of the draw a little bit.
Mhm.
You got to show up and they didn't.
Not even a little. One of my personal lowlights, Kevin, you've been on the Justin Fields might not be that good train for a bit,
Yeah.
and I've been in denial. I've been on the pro Justin Fields bus for a while, and I'm not getting off yet. But if the next stop looks as dire as this one, I might decide to walk the rest of the way. And it's not even that he just played mediocre, that he just wasn't completing enough passes. It's the same thing from last year where it's like he's making a lot of his stats in garbage time and like they don't trust him to throw the ball that much and he's just not reading the field well. It's also just like, man, again, all that Aaron Rodgers stuff about like I own you. And you were like this sort of preseason darling because you finally got some receivers and you like traded the first pick away as like a sign of trust for you. And you go out and lay an egg like that. Like you give Bears fans the tiniest bit of hope that this year might be different, and it's like, nope, you're still getting beaten by the Packers.
And it's not. It's kind of like you said, where he has people like he's relatively set up for some solid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one's super bad, no one's super good, but he's got decent receivers, decent tight end, decent running backs, and nothing worked for the kid, and that's why I still think he's still overhyped. And
yeah,
on our notes for this
worry.
episode, I had to double check the history because I was like, oh, I didn't think I wrote that down, but whatever, like that's weird because that's something like a take I would have, and then I checked the history and it's like, oh yeah, no, Carter wrote that in. Cool.
Yeah, I'm conceding. I know when I need to concede. Do we jump to Carter just has 2 minutes to yell, or do we do Tennessee first?
Let's do Tennessee first before we get on your...
Tennessee. What the fuck, guys? Look, I've never been big on Tennessee. Like, I've been generally in the stance of, like, another former, like, Arthur Smith's former team, always good enough to win some regular season games and then get humiliated in the playoffs in growingly cartoonish fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've basically been convinced they've been in a semi-tank since they traded away AJ Brown, but like they just have slightly too much talent to actually tank. But this felt like a bottoming out game. Like the Saints weren't even that good. Like their car looked fine but unspectacular. They didn't run the ball particularly well. Their defense was adequate.
Yeah,
like it's aged, but they still get the job done.
The Saints are set up to be a solid, pretty much an even year this year for their record.
Yeah.
They're going to be around 500.
Yeah. They'll probably win the division. But Ryan Tannehill, 198 yards and 3 interceptions. Like, he looked done. Like, he looked washed. Like, I don't even know how to describe it other than he looked washed. Like, everything felt like he was going through the motions. It felt like he had no, like, sense of the field.
Yeah.
It looked like he just wanted to get rid of the ball half the time.
And I mean, he was 16 for 34.
Yeah,
that's not good. I'll be honest, not good.
Yeah, and it's just like if you're watching him just stink up the joint, and you don't even have enough confidence in either Malik Willis or Will Levis to at least just put them out there to get reps. Like, at least try something. Like, what are we doing here, people? And I'm just like, wow, like there's no plan in place. There's no succession plan. There's no like development plan. And I really I suddenly is Mike Vrabel going to have his job at the end of the season? Because like he basically ran a coup against the GM who traded AJ Brown. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but if this is the best team you can make where you're in charge, that's not a very good team. Even Derrick Henry only got like 15 carries. So your usual in case of emergency break glass plan isn't even you're not even just running the rock through your physical freak anymore.
Yeah, what a insane person. Derrick Henry is not a chump.
Right. And I've been on the he's gonna fall apart soon train. He's gonna fall apart soon train. And he just hasn't. And I'm starting to think maybe he's just one of one. Maybe he is just that different. He's built so different than every other running back who's come before him that he can just do this until he's way older. But yeah, no, Tennessee is now one of my sleeper teams to get a top 5 pick.
Yeah. And straight up about the offense, what they did what the Giants didn't do. They got in field goal range. And when they were in field goal range, they took their losses on 7 and they went for 3. And that's how they have all 15 of their points is field goals. So great showing and strategy for that, for knowing when to just take what you can get, but a terrible showing for the offense. If you got 15 points and they're all exclusively from field goals. Wait, what?
Correct.
Oh, I'm looking at the Saints line. I was like, how do they have 3, 3, and 10, and how does that equal 15? Because I'm looking at the wrong line like a dummy. All right, Carter. Would you like the floor?
Yeah, let me just get this out of my system. There's the whole pitch for this era of Bills football, of Sean McDermott, is discipline. Oh, he's going to run a tight ship. It's going to be locked in. It's going to be focused. There's going to be accountability. And yet, when the Chiefs managed to kick a field goal with 13 seconds left, no one's held accountable. When you lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars with Urban Meyer, no one's really held accountable. When you give up 3 of the most iconic pass catches of all time in 3 different games, just dumb luck. And when Aaron Rodgers goes out with 4 after 4 plays and Zach Wilson comes in, apparently no one had enough leadership or authority in that locker room to get on the mic and say, we are not losing this game now. We are running the ball. The ball is not getting thrown more than 7 yards at any given time. We are literally, if we have to kick 10 field goals today, that is what we're doing. This is not about stats. This is about winning a game easily.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, all of it comes down to, this is Zach Wilson, a man who almost the minute he was drafted was framed as a historically dumb franchise. Yes, a historically dumb franchise overthinking something and looking past the obvious choices in either Justin Fields or Trey Lance. And granted, those two haven't worked out yet, but at least they have upside. It was a classic Mitchell Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
A player whose only notable fun sort of story about him is the fact that his girlfriend dumped him because he likes to have sex with older women. A player whose team actively rebelled against him in a way that could be defined as unprecedented. That Robert Saleh and the Jets staff had no choice but to bend over backwards to get Aaron Rodgers in town because they had expended all of their other options. And if they trotted Zach Wilson out there again, they were all going to lose their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
A man who sucked all of the energy out of that stadium that day, who had fans flipping off the camera on national television, who Peyton Manning could not hide his disgust of during the game. He was actively frustrated. At some point, Peyton Manning literally said, I wouldn't throw if his life depended on it. A man who, on the one touchdown he scored all day, actually threw it directly at the cornerback. That should have been an interception. But by the grace of Garrett Wilson had the sense to volleyball the ball back to himself so he could catch it with the other hand.
Yeah.
A truly incredible, like, if Garrett Wilson
Great
was not
play.
a top 15 wide receiver in the league, that would have been intercepted, or at least a jump ball.
Yeah.
A man, even though they had the Bills dead to rights, only needing to go 15 yards to score a game like the lead-taking touchdown, and knowing that Garrett Wilson is covered by Christian Bedford, our second-string cornerback who doesn't play man coverage, they still were so scared that Zach Wilson would somehow find a way to fuck this up, either by fumbling or taking a big sack, or maybe they just said, hey, it's been a while since someone had explosive diarrhea on a football field. Let's not take that chance. And they ran the ball 3 times. You are the only team to lose to Zach Wilson twice.
Yep.
2 out of his 8 career wins have now come against the Buffalo Bills. 25% of the light in this man's otherwise black hole of a career is your fault. That is not, like, losing to Urban Meyer's Jacksonville Jaguars isn't any given thing. Sometimes you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and just get rocked. Losing to Mac Jones, who threw 3 passes in an ice bowl, that is just a weird historical anomaly. Something for the Hall of Fame to talk about, like, hey, wasn't it weird that one time that happened?
We're all going to acknowledge this happened, but wow.
Yes. This is, like, again, I used to say I wouldn't want an owner like Jim Irsay who makes... But you know what? It worked out for the Colts that after losing to the Jaguars, he stormed into someone's office and said, Carson Wentz will not wear my team's jersey anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Do whatever you have to do to get rid of him. Like this, and I'm tired of Bills fans saying that this is just week 1. No, because this has been a pattern. For the last, 14 weeks of football, this has been what's happened. We have underperformed, we have been unprepared, we have turned the ball over, and we have generally just been lifeless. The sheer weight of all of the terrible draft picks we've made coming to a head with our lack of talent, our lack of difference makers, and our lack of any ability to adapt or change in the middle of a game. And all of it ends up falling on Josh Allen, who once again did the same song and dance of, I have to be better. Well, when is it going to happen? You know what's funny? For all of that, and I promise I'll end this rant soon, but I'm gonna get the spiciest part out that I decided on today. You know, all the talk about Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen fighting. One, Josh Allen is not a leader. He is not the leader of this football team. Stephon Diggs is. He is the emotional heart of this team. He is an actual leader whose meltdown last season was actually correct. At some point, all of this becomes unacceptable, and you need someone like him to say it's unacceptable. And it's become clear that his angst is more about the coaching staff being unable to rise to the occasion, of management being unable to rise to the occasion. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of Jimmy Butler, who everyone framed it as Jimmy Butler versus Ben Simmons, when in reality, it was more Jimmy Butler was mad at Brett Brown for coddling Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. His whole thing was you have to choose. You should fire Brett Brown and bring in a real coach and see if these guys can do it. And they picked the coaching over Jimmy Butler. This is the same thing. Josh Allen got to keep Ken Dorsey on staff because they are friends, because Josh Allen likes him. Josh Allen cannot have a coach who likes him. He is not successful enough career-wise yet to be able to make staffing decisions. Mm-hmm. You need to bring in someone who will get on his case. And unfortunately, most of the sexy offensive coordinators who could have changed this are now on different teams. Like Kellen Moore, the Kansas City offensive coordinator, hell, even Frank Wright, because he kind of made it work for a while with another mentally short quarterback in Carson Wentz. It is getting dangerously close to Carson Wentz territory right now. And the only difference between Carson Wentz and Josh Allen is that Josh Allen has shown it just a little longer that you might be able to turn the ship around, and that if it really came down to it, I have zero faith that Brandon Beane as a general manager can pull off the absolute highway robbery that Colts trade was, that basically saved the Eagles franchise. You lost to Zach Wilson.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Let's talk about some notable notes real quick before we start the next week hype.
Right.
Big
quarter. Yes.
You go first. You speak.
Sorry. Big quarterback bust week. A lot of big names. A lot of A lot of guys who got a lot of money
Yes.
kind of pooped the bed a little bit. Now, Joe Burrow is the one guy I'm willing to excuse because I'm like, wow, it's almost as if he didn't play. He hurt himself on like day 2 of preseason and
Something
couldn't practice.
something was off about him. I don't know. Yeah. It was clear he was not ready to play.
Hmm.
And yeah, I feel like nothing more like the rest of the team. I mean, the Bengals are a very receiving heavy team, so they need a quarterback can throw, and they just didn't have that.
Yeah. And they went 0-2 to start the year last year. This is not a press the button game yet. It's like,
It's the only reason it's on the list is big money deal just happened, big bust of a game.
right. I don't know if it would have been better or worse to announce the contract before or after the game.
I think before was the better option because if it was after, he would have probably there would have been a riot.
Right.
Aaron
And
Rodgers.
you know, it's,
Oh yeah, continue.
well, I was just going to say, it's very funny that Aaron Rodgers is the next one on our list because when I saw the calf injury for Burrow, I was like, you know what? They should just let him sit the first 2 games of the regular season because calf injuries are weird and they can linger and turn into something much worse. And it's like you can live going 0-2. You can't live with Joe Burrow tearing his Achilles tendon.
Yeah,
And you know who I forgot also had calf problems in the preseason? Aaron
Rodgers.
Rodgers.
And you know who tore his Achilles tendon 4 plays in? Aaron Rodgers.
You know what's sad? I actually think if Aaron Rodgers stayed in the game, we would have had a better chance because, like, our pass rush is much better than our run defense. He got hit on all 4 of those plays.
Yeah.
Like, he was on the run that entire time.
Yeah, no, he's not like the quickest guy anymore. So he's if you got through that offensive line and he has nobody open, you're gonna get him.
And you know what's wild? It's just kind of perfect because, like, I never imagined he'd ever actually. In my head, I'm just like, no, that's too easy. There has to be some kind of hook. He'll retire, or, like,
Yeah,
Newark, New Jersey will sink into the sea. Something will happen. This can't actually happen, right?
it happened.
Truly the most perfect ending to this entire saga I could imagine.
Mhm.
It reminds me, it's like a reverse of like when Duke was playing North Carolina with Zion Williamson. It's his like first North Carolina Duke game. Like Obama was in the stands. It was this huge event, and like 2 minutes in, Zion plants weird. His shoe explodes, and he sprains his ankle.
Yeah,
Literally explode. His foot explodes out of the shoe. Um, and the thing is, he just might be done. He's like 43. Like an Achilles injury is like one of the few injuries that we're still not great on recovering people from.
yeah.
Like it was,
That's not a
it
quick.
cost,
It's
yeah,
it's almost better though that he snapped it instead of like a partial tear, because since he snapped it and I saw a replay of it happening and it was kind of nuts. Um, he has that, like, you see the shuffle
hmm,
and the movement of it, and then it's just kind of like, well, oh shit, we can at least rebuild it back together or figure something out. If it was a partial tear, that's not a lot harder because you still have a healthy chunk, and now there's that strain on that healthy chunk too from holding the whole thing together.
hmm.
That's a lot more work than just we're gonna have to just completely reset his leg. Um,
I never want to root for an injury, but the only solace from this entire that now the Jets will never get to win a Super Bowl. We have stolen that from
oh
them.
man, he was like, if you want to talk about like being set up for success and then just shit hitting the fan, that's what happened with Rodgers dropping, and now they're
What are they gonna
workshopping.
do? They can't play Zach. They can't.
They're
Like they genuinely can't.
as of right now, Zach Wilson's their guy, and that's what they've said because he's their only guy. They don't have any other backups, so
Oh, there's
they're hearing out offers from pretty much every available like free agent QB, um, And we'll see what happens. And maybe they'll work something out to get like a solid trade or something for like somebody's backup or third string. Get Mike White back or something. But yeah,
I just can't believe. Well, I can believe this has happened, but I can't believe this has happened.
And then also another big QB bust, Danny Dimes, of course.
Yeah.
All three of those, big money deal, first week failure. Big money deal, first week failure. Big money deal, first week failure. And at least Joe Burrow wasn't 100%. Rodgers snapped his Achilles like on the first drive. So like that's kind of excusable.
Right. Danny just got folded like laundry.
Yep. And then I also put Kirk as a question mark because not the best performance of his career, and he's up there in age. So will this be like the start of a decline or just a one-off game?
Like it had the scent of like this is the beginning of the end, especially because again, Justin Jefferson balled out as per usual and then just looked like just beside himself at the end of the game, and I'm just like, oh, this is how things start to unravel a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, if on the Bills, I'm like, how many picks do you want?
Outside of Aaron Rodgers, there's what is it, Dobbins from
J.K. Dobbins.
Big injury there.
People are like, oh, this is so brutal. Like, they never have injury luck. And I'm like, do the Ravens never have injury luck? Or is it J.K. Dobbins, like, incredible player, but he's always hurt.
Yeah, he's one of those that it's just like, if he stays healthy, he's set. He just has to stay healthy.
And I don't think he will, because this is like the 7th catastrophic injury he's had.
I believe it's a season-ending injury, another one.
Oh, yeah, there's no way especially with his injury history, like, there's no way he's coming back from this.
The smart, in my opinion, the smart move would to be retire while you're still semi-decent, and then maybe take up like a running back coach job, NFL, college level, like a decent one. Like there's a bunch of players that have a certain level of skill, and I believe it for like Jason Kelce too, where it's just like his retirement plan should be just becoming like Jeff Stoutland's assistant and just hanging out, offering advice, not doing much, not doing anything crazy, and just enjoy his has a job and enjoys his retired life. And I think Dobbins is at that good enough point in his career where he can retire safely being a coach, like a positional coach.
Yeah, it's brutal, but at some point you do have to just take a deep breath and say, like, maybe this isn't my destiny.
Yeah, no, and those injuries pile up so quickly too, because it's not like, especially if you get a season-ending injury week 1, you know it's severe, and because that's 18 plus weeks of just not having, of being out, guaranteed, and it's just like you got to look after yourselves. And I get the love of the game and stuff like that keeps people going, but you got to look out for yourself at some point.
Oh, yeah. Other than that, weren't too many big injuries. I know Jonathan Taylor could pass his physical as early as Saturday. The Seahawks lost both of their offensive tackles.
Yeah. Couple
and then just a smattering all over the place.
Yeah, there's a couple concussions, rib injuries, minor leg injuries across the league because it's first week back. The rust hasn't worn off everybody yet.
Oh yeah.
But it's at least it's fortunate that there's nothing no one's being carted, not much more is being carted off the field and stuff like that. A lot of it's moving away on their own power and just not being cleared to re-enter, which is a very good sign, I guess. It's a very good sign that injuries aren't worse, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield knew Minnesota's D calls. Are you familiar with the story? I saw the
Yeah.
headline, but I didn't really read it yet.
Yeah, so basically, part of Baker Mayfield's speech, spiel, whatever you want, is he was able to recognize some of Minnesota's like calls for defense, like watch out for this guy, look out here, and I kind of wanted to like pick your brain on it a little bit because it's like that's a very interesting claim. Because
Yeah,
I can understand a defender knowing the quarterback's calls because they have a lot more to like. Quarterback needs a lot more focus. But if Baker Mayfield is just looking around and noticing these calls and able to adapt like that, like that's pretty impressive.
yeah, it's something like top tier quarterbacks are able to do. If you watch enough tape, you should be able to pick up on a lot of stuff, even when defenses are like changing them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, Baker, you didn't play that well.
No, he didn't play that well. They did manage a win though, and it's like I guess the argument is it just super obvious calls or is like what was Baker Mayfield focused? Like I know you got to scan the defense before you snap, but how focused was he on the defense versus his own team when you're an offense exclusive player to be like to know who to throw it to because he doesn't have a lot of help on the offense in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
Um,
he's got to be on the lookout for like that might be the strat of he doesn't have a lot of help on the offense, so might as well be on the lookout and study the defenses. And if you're able to pick up, I think he mentioned it at halftime at the latest to the team. He was able to pick it up. So if you're able to get your calls picked up at by halftime, how obvious are your calls? That's kind of where
I mean, Minnesota's defense has not been particularly great over the last few years. Yeah, of course it would be their defense.
yeah. Like that's kind of like my question on the matter of how much effort is Baker Mayfield putting into looking at the other defense versus what he's got going on, and how obvious is the Vikings calls, and is that a strategy? is that the next level strategy? Trying to play 4D
look,
chess.
he does need every little bit of help he can get. Like I've been on the stance that he's not great.
No.
Like he's a short king. He doesn't have the best physical tools. This is the kind of stuff he needs to be doing if he wants to keep his career going. Look, at the end of the day, they won the game. This is already one more win than I was expecting them to get.
Yeah.
So no shade. Well done, Baker.
It's just kind of like the reason I added that because it's like what a claim to just make.
He is a master of branding. I'll give him that.
All right, and now I got a question of the week for you. So, question of the week, we'll do 60 seconds this week.
All right.
60 seconds to explain your take on it, and nothing spectacular. All right. So the question of this week is, what is beginner's luck, and versus what is skill? Because we saw a lot of lower quality teams upset higher quality teams. So luck versus skill in that regard. And go.
Beginner's luck in the NFL is when you are not on tape. Like the best teams watch so much tape and study so much, they are able to get a good sense of what you can do, what your plans are before you even make them. But if you're a beginner, there isn't that tape. It's basically Mike White last year, where it's well, no one knows what this man's capable of, so he keeps catching us off guard. Whereas skill is innate. You can't teach skill. Skill is being able to go out there and completely change what you're doing at any given time.
All right. You still have 20 seconds.
Oh.
You can end early. It's fine. Alrighty. My take's pretty simple. It's basically I don't believe it's luck versus skill until it's like week 3. Because everyone is still kind of figuring out their teams and lineups and rookies and early injuries and stuff like that. So week 3 is when it is going to be more pure just skill and understanding your opponents by that point. Unless if you're Baker Mayfield, where you're freakishly predicting calls, apparently, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if next week he'll have like the powers of teleportation or something. And time for me.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I stole Nightcrawler's powers. I can now poof."
I believe it's technically a Bamf sound.
All right.
Anyway.
I swear to God.
Big Nightcrawler. Okay.
He's not in the MCU yet. I don't count him. He's non-canon for me.
All right. Next week 2 of the NFL. So Thursday night is Eagles Vikings. Sunday night football is Dolphins Patriots. Big division game there. And then there's 2 Monday night games this week. There is Saints Panthers and Browns Steelers. Yep.
God, they gave because I knew they usually do that for week 1, but my God, they were so confident in the Aaron bump. They didn't do 2 games.
Yeah.
God, man, they really put too many eggs in that basket, Scoop. I will say I'm not really jazzed about either of those Monday night games. I guess it'll be nice to see Bryce Young in prime time, and I would like to see the Steelers put the hurt on the Browns because, again, I think it's morally wrong to like the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
But woof. For me, the game, and like again, this isn't like a hot take one. This isn't like profound, but I'm really looking forward to Chiefs Jaguars, the very exciting playoff game last year. I'd argue the Jaguars really felt like they had the Chiefs number last year, and in my estimation, the Jaguars have only gone up. Like they looked, even though they were sweating it a little bit against the Colts, they looked good. They looked efficient. Like Trevor Lawrence again was affirming every positive thing said about him in the draft, and Calvin Ridley.
Talk about a show up.
I very much am kicking myself for not trying to reach harder to get him in either of our fantasy drafts.
Yep.
He is exactly as advertised. He looks like a guy who's extremely rested from not playing football for about 2 years. He looks locked in. He looks like he's already got sync with Trevor Lawrence. I really just want to see more of this offense just playing.
Yeah, I'm typically not sold on like people that are out for an entire year for non-injury related things, because it's like, all right, why you were out for a year for reason X. Like let's see how, like, the NFL is a hard to stop and then get back into the swing of things very quickly,
right?
League, and he easily did it. But I would say that has potential to be a really good game. Is that going to be your sleeper, the don't sleep on game of the week from you, Chiefs Jaguars?
That's definitely the one I'm most excited for. Perhaps my don't sleep on game, because I feel like I got to pick something lower key for that. I'm going to say for my don't sleep on game, I'm probably going to say Colts Texans.
I was thinking that too.
Yes. I'm very excited to see these two rookies go against each other. I'm excited to see like what the hierarchy of the AFC South is going to turn out to be for the foreseeable future, especially because it feels like the Jags are confidently number 1 now. And for me, the Titans are the bottom tier.
Yeah.
I just want to see these guys go to work.
I think Chiefs Jaguars should be a pretty great game. Like, I fully agree with you on both of your mentions for it. But Colts Texans, I feel like is secretly gonna be like, that's my opinion for the don't sleep on game too, because it's too like mid rebuilding teams. There's some older talent, but a lot of it's the young, like relying on
Yeah.
the younger kids.
Most of the older talent are like mercenaries. Bring these guys in to have a sense of what else we have. They're here to like just be a nice floor so we can figure out if we have any ceilings.
Yeah, like Jaguars allowed only 2 sacks this last game, so I feel like that versus the Houston offensive line is a little bit more of a fair assessment for, compared to the 5 they allowed last week against it. I feel like that's going to be just like that's going to be determining the future of the division. And basically who would be up there with competing with the Jaguars for potential first top slot in the division. And here's a quick question. Which game is your hardcore not gonna watch game? Like, you'll watch every other game before this one.
Oh. Probably Commanders Broncos, the least inspiring combination of just like I love football. I do not love football that much. I do not love football to like hurt my soul on that level of mid.
I'd rather watch Jets Cowboys and Giants Cardinals and 49ers Rams pretty much at that time slot.
At least the Giants have Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. Honestly, this is the first for the future week that I'm going to disagree with you on. I would say Bears Broncos. That's I feel like that's going to be
Bears Buccaneers.
Oh, sorry, Bears Buccaneers, yeah.
Yeah, that one could really suck.
You said Broncos and I got stuck in alliteration. Yeah, that one's not looking super amazing. Both like Buccaneers won this week, but amazing performance ? And then Bears played this last week. So I'm not expecting I'm not expecting to see them constantly on red zone. The only thing I expect out of that game is for Baker Mayfield to announce he has like teleportation powers or some shit.
Yes, I am now Cyclops. I shoot lasers.
Yep. All right, so we got our so the official Don't Sleep On game, the game you gotta watch if you're watching nothing else, is the Colts Texans for week 1. All right.
Yes. And I believe we have one last topic we need to get in before we wrap it up for the night.
All right. You want to read the concession speech of the week?
Yes. So as we mentioned, a part of our comedy league, which I am glad people are starting to like rack up some comedy points. I'm hoping to see some really. I'm hoping we start seeing some funky stuff soon. So our friend Sydney, fellow Disney Desk host, captain of the Girl Boss Gatekeepers, decided not only would she write a concession speech, because the lowest scoring person has to write a concession speech, she decided to do it in character. So in brackets, copy and paste this to any haters and delete this part before sending. Congratulations to everyone on the Girl Boss Gatekeepers for an amazing week of hard work, dedication, and resilience. We performed amazingly this week, hitting and even exceeding all of our goals for week 1. Yes, there were some pitfalls along the way. I am even humble enough to admit that a few mistakes were made on our part. That's what a real boss does. They own up to their shortcomings, given that there is enough solid evidence against them. To our haters, we see you trying with everything you have to tear us down. We know you are just dying to see us fall. Well, we're still standing in spite of your toxic jealousy. That's okay, though. Keep hating on us. We will continue living our absolute best lives as the incredibly talented team we are. Go Gatekeepers. We did not make a rule that you had to do it, but now she has set the bar very high for everyone else.
Yeah, bar's been set. Everyone's got to match it now.
I'm very excited to see the next few. I'm already brainstorming. I don't think we explained our bits. So my bit is the Midtown Mids. So I, using the Ringer Podcast Network's rankings, picked basically anywhere from the 14th to 16th best guy at every position. So, for example, my quarterbacks are Jared Goff, Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, and then I added Kirk Cousins because, he's the embodiment of mid. My running backs are like Kenneth Gainwell, Tyler Algier, Kenneth Walker, Brees Hall. Although Brees Hall's going to jump up that list really soon. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Perfectly middle people.
Yeah, my bit was there ain't enough room for two, so I could not draft a single person, more than one person per team. And I think I got very lucky with my picks. And there's some hyper fixations on other bits. I'm looking at you, Callum. That let me get a lot of good people. Like, I have both Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. I have Justin Tucker. I'm in 3 leagues and I have Justin Tucker in all 3.
God damn it.
I've got Garrett Wilson, Derrick Henry. Like, I got let with way too much.
Half of our bets left us lost at sea, and our other half of our bets just let us make normal, good football teams.
Yeah. Joe has the Avocado Boys, which pretty solid team of exclusively drafting from Florida teams or California teams because they produce the most avocados. Callum is the stream team. So
all streamers.
Anyone who appears in video game content. And then Tom was the fantasy the long way. All the either tall or very long-haired teams.
Good bit.
Solid bit. That's the funniest bit. And there was so many picks that were just dropped all the way down low because of just stupid things. Like, Callum picked up Tyreek Hill in like the 14th round or something absurd.
Yes. Oh, and yes, Sydney's bit is the girl boss gatekeepers. And the idea is it's a combination of siblings in the league, because those are the people you try to get into your MLM.
Yep.
And stuff like she decided to gatekeep all of the people named Josh, which I think is exclusively so she could have Josh Allen, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, which hilarious. Like, the gatekeeping alone, just going all for. I think she did Josh, and I think she did Devontae.
Yes, which I think is also because she wanted Devontae Smith. Yeah. But you know what? He's still committed, so we'll let you have it.
And projections for this upcoming week are pretty interesting because Tom was very close this last week. And we're playing each other. It's you versus me.
Oh, damn. Oh, yeah. Man, the mids really... I really need them to unmid themselves because I can't lose 2 in a row. I got really close to having to make my concession speech.
You did.
But yeah, I'm really excited to see how we roll on, especially we have some people with enough comedy points to make some waves.
Yeah, power-ups will hopefully be happening soon. So send us home, Carter. We'll end it here.
Thank you all for listening. Football's back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're excited to crack open some beers, get yourself some Doritos, and enjoy week 2.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Doritos.
Yeah, I don't really like them either.